People saw me as the woman who had it all. The headlines loved to remind the world that I was the youngest female CEO of a rising tech empire, a symbol of ambition and success in a city that worshipped both. Every magazine cover, every interview, every handshake in a boardroom painted the picture of a woman who was untouchable, confident, unstoppable. And yet, when the meetings ended and the cameras turned off, I would come home to a silence so sharp it almost echoed. My penthouse, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and panoramic view of the city, looked more like a perfectly staged set than a home. No laughter, no warmth, no one waiting for me. Just me, my reflection in the glass, and the weight of achievements that never felt enough. The truth no one knew was that success is a strange kind of prison. I wore designer clothes, sat at tables where decisions shaped futures, and signed deals worth millions, but I couldn't remember the last time someone held my hand simply because they cared, not because they wanted something from me. People looked at me and saw power. They didn't see the exhaustion in my eyes when I finally removed my makeup at night. They didn't see me scrolling through my phone at 2 a.m., pretending not to notice how no one checked in, how no one thought to ask if I was okay. I told myself this was the price of ambition, that love, friendship, even softness were luxuries I couldn't afford. But in the quiet moments, when the city lights glittered outside and I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I wondered if I had built my empire just to fill a void that kept growing deeper. Sometimes, I thought about the girl I used to be before the boardrooms and the titles, the one who dreamed of adventure, of reckless laughter, of being seen for who she really was. Somewhere along the way, I lost her. And the emptiness reminded me every day. People thought I had everything. But what they didn't know was that I had everything except the one thing I craved most, someone to make me feel alive again. It started on a Friday night, the kind of night where the rain-slicked streets glistened under neon lights, and I felt the ache of being too alive to stay locked inside my glass tower. I had spent the day in endless meetings, my voice sharp, my smile polished, my name carrying the weight of a company too big to ever pause. But when the doors closed and I was finally alone, the walls of success pressed in on me like a cage. I didn't want champagne, or accolades, or another reminder of how impressive I was. I wanted chaos, something reckless, something that would drown out the silence that gnawed at me every night. That's when I found myself behind the wheel of my midnight blue Aston Martin, driving nowhere, searching for an escape. The city has a way of revealing its secrets when you're desperate enough to look for them. I followed the hum of engines, the whispers of adrenaline-fueled crowds gathering in shadowed parking lots, and there it was. The underground world I had only ever heard rumors of. Illegal street racing. The smell of gasoline mixed with cigarette smoke, the sound of laughter that was too wild to be sober, the pulsing bass of music shaking through the pavement. People didn't look at me like I was a CEO here. They looked at me like I was just another thrill seeker, another soul chasing the edge. And for the first time in years, I didn't correct them. I should have walked away. I should have remembered the contracts waiting on my desk, the empire built on my discipline and restraint. But the roar of engines pulled something buried out of me, something raw and untamed. My hand tightened on the wheel, my heart pounding with a rhythm that didn't belong in boardrooms. When the countdown began, 5 fingers dropping one by one, it wasn't fear I felt. It was freedom. The race blurred everything else. The city lights became streaks of color, the world narrowed into the sharp turns of wet asphalt, and for once, I wasn't the CEO, the symbol, the success story. I was just a woman flying down a forbidden road, daring life to catch me. Every second was dangerous, but every second reminded me I was still alive. And in that reckless escape, I knew I had crossed into a world that could either destroy me, or save me. I never saw him coming, at least, not in the way he would change everything. The night of the race was supposed to be another reckless attempt to outrun the emptiness, another blur of speed and neon to quiet the silence I carried inside. But fate has a strange way of crashing into your life when you least expect it. I remember the screech of tires, the sudden lurch as I lost control for a split second, and then the blinding realization that another car had cut across my path. We skidded to a halt inches from disaster, my heart pounding so violently I thought it might tear through my chest. When I finally climbed out, angry and breathless, I found myself face to face with a man whose eyes held both fire and weariness, the kind only life's battles can carve into someone's soul. He wasn't like the others gathered around us, the cocky racers, the thrill-drunk crowd. He was older, grounded, his presence heavy with a quiet authority I couldn't ignore. His jaw was set like stone, his dark hair damp from the rain, and yet there was something softer in the way he looked at me, like he wasn't just seeing the reckless driver in front of him but the person beneath the mask. "You could have killed yourself," he said, his voice rough but steady, a voice that carried the weight of someone who had seen too much loss already. Later I would learn he was an ex-cop, a man who had walked away from the badge after it cost him too much, a man raising a young daughter on his own. That night, though, all I knew was that he didn't look at me like a CEO, or a competitor, or a stranger to scold. He looked at me like a woman on the edge of breaking. And for reasons I couldn't explain, it disarmed me. I tried to brush it off, to throw up the same defenses I always did, sarcasm, indifference, the practiced armor of someone who doesn't let people in. But his words lingered. His presence lingered. In a world where everyone either wanted to worship me or use me, here was a man who only wanted me to stay alive. And that collision, as unexpected as it was, felt less like an accident and more like the beginning of something I hadn't dared to hope for, a chance at being seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. He had a way of looking at me that made the walls I had spent years building suddenly feel fragile. For so long, I had convinced myself that I didn't need anyone, that the armor of power, success, and control was enough to protect me from disappointment. But the more time I spent with him, the more I realized how heavy that armor had become. He never tried to tear it off. Instead, he stood there patiently, letting me decide if I was ready to lower it. And when I did, even just a little, I was terrified by how much it hurt to feel again. We began to talk outside the chaos of racing, in quiet corners of the city where no one knew my name. He shared pieces of his story, how being a cop had broken him in ways he rarely admitted, how losing his partner in a raid still haunted his nights, how his little girl was the only thing that pulled him back from the edge. His honesty shook me. I wasn't used to raw truth, I was used to people telling me what I wanted to hear. And yet, listening to him, I felt safe enough to speak about the emptiness, the loneliness, the pressure that had crushed me into someone I barely recognized. For the first time in years, I wasn't performing. I was just me. But healing isn't a straight path. There were nights I wanted to run, nights when the weight of my own fears convinced me I wasn't capable of love, that I would only ruin what was fragile and good. He didn't let me push him away so easily. He reminded me that broken doesn't mean unworthy, that scars are proof of survival, not shame. Slowly, I started to believe him. And in facing the truths I had buried, I began to find pieces of myself I thought were gone forever, the girl who laughed without calculating how it looked, the woman who craved connection more than perfection, the soul who wanted to be held, not admired. Healing didn't come from erasing the wounds. It came from letting someone see them, and choosing to believe that I could still be loved anyway. With him, I was learning that broken hearts don't stay shattered forever, they can mend, even if the cracks remain. And in those cracks, the light finally found its way in. I never imagined love would find me in the ruins of my own recklessness. For years, I had convinced myself that I was unworthy of anything deeper than admiration or fear. My empire, my wealth, my image, all of it had been a shield to keep people from touching the parts of me I was afraid to expose. But standing beside him, with his steady hands and his quiet strength, I realized love wasn't about perfection. It was about presence. It was about someone seeing all the shadows inside you and choosing to stay anyway. He did that for me. And for the first time in my life, I allowed myself to believe I deserved it. Redemption came quietly, not in grand gestures but in small, relentless moments. It was in his daughter's laughter when I taught her how to braid her hair, in the way he leaned on me when his own past felt too heavy, and in the silence we shared that no longer felt like emptiness but peace. I had lived so long surrounded by people who only valued me for what I could give them. With him, I wasn't the CEO, the public figure, the headline. I was just a woman with scars, finally allowed to breathe. That freedom was more valuable than anything money could buy. The road toward a new beginning wasn't smooth. There were doubts, whispers from the outside world, and temptations to fall back into the cold comfort of control. But every time I faltered, he reminded me of the woman I was becoming, the one brave enough to love, to forgive herself, to let go of the chains she had built. I realized redemption wasn't about erasing my past. It was about writing a future where my mistakes no longer defined me. Now, when I drive through the city at night, I don't chase the rush of speed to feel alive. I hold his hand, I listen to his daughter's stories, and I let the sound of their laughter fill the silence that once haunted me. Love didn't fix me, but it gave me the courage to fix myself. And redemption, I've learned, isn't about going back to who I was. It's about stepping into who I was always meant to be, with them beside me, guiding me toward a road that finally feels like home.